Can you hear me?
Good evening, ma.
Good evening. Can you hear me very well?
Yes, ma.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to raise up my iPad.
Okay, ma.
Yeah, I think
You're welcome, ma.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are so pleased to have you for you to share part of your experience with us as we look to expand our capacity and to let people actually know about what zero hunger is. Because most people they just thought it's only for a group of people. They are only particular about zero hunger. But to us at Agricincome, we believe that zero hunger, for us to achieve zero hunger, is actually everybody's business. And we also believe that through backyard farming, we can all achieve zero hunger because we believe that once a person is able to feed for his family, definitely he can feed others as well. So, for our first edition of our e-magazine, we talk about creating a niche in Agribusiness. For us to actually achieve zero hunger, you must have a particular thing you are doing. So, but for this edition now, I want to talk about how we can actually enhance agricultural productivity. We believe that through us enhancing agricultural productivity, we can actually boost and increase food productivity. So with little time, we just want you to actually expatiate a little on how we can actually enhance agricultural productivity.
Okay. Yes, please go on. Sorry about that.
Okay, ma. I think in a few minutes, ma, we just want you to elaborate a little about how we can actually enhance agricultural productivity. So,
Okay, how many minutes do I have?
I have about 30 minutes, ma, and we have 10 minutes for questions, making it 40 minutes.
Okay. When we talk about agriculture, I would like to make it an encompassing definition to include the processors, the producers, everybody in that space. And I'm only going to share from my own experience how we can improve productivity. First of all, the production systems. There has to be a strategy for production by anyone in the agribusiness. It's not a matter of just producing and then either looking for where to dump it or who to sell it to, and when it should be in the market. So there has to be that production schedule by everyone who produces. When do you expect, let's say it's crops, when do you expect it to be in the market? Is it going to be in the market at a time when everybody else too has planted and you are struggling? Or are you going to time it such that it's going to be in the market when it has value? Or are you growing it for a specific market so that by the time you are ready to harvest, you already have off-takers who will take what you're buying? Because the essence of production is that it reaches people's tables at the end of the day, not that it's rotting somewhere or the farmer is not happy because the farmer has been forced to just sell it off at some ridiculous price. So every farmer should have a production schedule. And the production schedule should include things like the safety of the food, and it should also include the quality of the food. Because it is one thing to eat, but it's another thing to eat food that has nutrient. So it's not just foodless food, it is food that will nourish the body. Then every producer or processor would also need to ensure that they have an IT or some form of technology strategy. The way the world is going, I think this is something that COVID-19 has taught everyone. It's no longer business as usual. And I keep telling people that it will there is no time when we will go back to what we used to have. I mean, thank goodness there had been things like Instagram Live before, but now I can say that many of us are almost over Zoomed. This is probably my 4th online session today. I had to come specially to town so that I could take all of this, because I know the technology on my farm would never sustain me being like this. So for us as producers, there must be something that we are driving at, either with our IT or the technology. Now you're beginning to have farms that have drones that can, spray the farm. You have maps that will show you which is fertile on your farm and which area is not. So that strategy is something that each and every one of us should drive at. The fact that I'm eliciting this doesn't mean I have them myself already, but it is in focus. So I'm just talking of things that we can leverage on and plan for. Then, for us to have zero hunger, we must have marketing strategy. There are producers who will tell me things like, oh, I just love to grow. You can't just love to grow food and not be able to sell it. I believe that nobody markets your production better than you yourself. You are going to talk about it, from within your heart. You're going to talk about it with all the passion, because it's your effort. You know what has gone into it. So if they tapped you even from your sleep, you're going to be able to tell anyone, you should be able to tell anyone about what you have. So more and more, it's no longer business as usual. You have to be able to pitch what you're doing. I mean, anybody should ask you, so how come, what is this and all of that? And even in 2 sentences, you should be able to convince any other person about what you do. Very, very important. Also, staffing strategy. Many primary producers, even processors, tend to have that problem. You have problem of staff. I don't even think there's any activity that we do in Nigeria now that you don't have to consider the staff. And really, they're the backbone of your business. Even if you're a processor, you're not going to do everything by yourself. You're going to have to leverage on the staff you have. You have to train them. That's another area that I feel that many of us might be guilty. Training our workers and our staff, investing in them enables productivity to increase, because they are happy to be where they are. They are happy to be doing what they're doing. You'll be surprised that simple things like washing of hands are things that I insist on teaching my workers. And sometimes we just ask someone to be the one to teach every other person, what to do. We will give nicknames, and if you've been good at something, we attach that product to your name just to make you feel very good and all of that. So we need to consider our staff, because they're very important to what we're doing. Mechanization is also now key. We're going into dry season. I remembered when the last meeting I had with my workers, and we were talking about our sweet corn and all of that. And one of the workers said, isn't it when there is rain that we grow corn? I said, that was years ago, not anymore. Now there is hardly anything you want to grow that you cannot grow, because all you need is the right mechanization for it. So that is another area where some of us will fall short if we are not thinking about it already. If food has to be on the table 24/7, then we need to see how to ensure that food gets to the table 24/7. In the olden days, the time dry season is when people go on a rest, because they feel that, oh, the rains are no more. But with the generational thing, it is no longer that. We now have to invest in anything that would make production to be all year round for anybody who is producing. And we all know that even the processors have to rely on the primary producers. So it's a win-win game, and we're all in it together. Another thing that Under mechanization, I'll bring in water. The water is very key. And it's not just any kind of water. We're getting to that point where even storage of water, something as simple as having a reservoir, is very, very important, because the dry season is now here. The rain stopped, I think, sometime this year. The whole of July and August, we didn't have any rains at all. So supposing we didn't have any water strategy, then that meant that I would have had to look for money to pay workers, because I couldn't afford to pay them because I'm not producing anything. Another thing that I like to mention is governance. Many of us still shy from the proper record keeping, the proper relationship with those in government. And when I say government, I mean even the local government within our areas. It's very, very important that we know what is expected of us. If everything is right within the production system, food will get to the table. So these are underlying things that I know can readily affect production. Our workers must be trained. If, for instance, I met someone recently who said, I'd like you to assess my farm for me. I am not a farmer, but I love agriculture. We cannot insist that every investor in agriculture would need to have the knowledge. Yes, it's good to have some level of knowledge, but it's not everybody that will till the ground and all of that. Some just have the money to put into it. So that was a valuable thing for me, because that kind of person, without another set of eyes apparently assessing and being able to share information with that person, there might be no production and there might be no food on the table. He would just realize that, oh, I have spent so much money and nothing is coming out of it. And we already know that agriculture is one of those businesses where you need patient money to do it. And even to make the money, you have to be patient too. So it's not something that you rush in and rush out. First year, second year, you're wondering, I'm just spending money, nothing is coming out of it. That is agriculture, because the overhead will always be there. There are tools and equipment that make your work faster and more efficient. And they're not things that you can recoup the money, all of a sudden like that. So you require patient money, because you can't have a bank breathing down your back when you have taken a facility and they want their money back in 3 months. The confusion that will meet that particular farmer would be very, very strong. And then there has to be an engagement strategy. And who do we need to engage with? All the stakeholders. I am looking forward to a time when there's more collaboration between processors and producers. Those are some of the key areas where we can get food to the table. Right now, there's quite a lot of silos. I'm producing, you're processing. Meanwhile, you do not think that I should be engaged to produce for you. But then, the day the main market is closed or something, then you start walking about. We had people during COVID who were physically walking into farms looking for things to buy, because they're processors, and without any understanding or relationship with farmers, they now had to start combing different farms to look for, their products. Another thing that is very key is the community that we work with or we work within. We need to have some kind of strategy whereby we are relating with them. They don't just see us as, oh, that person. At the end of the day, they are part of the bottom line in our production processes. Sometimes, if you find a producer or a processor in a very hostile community, that work is not going to go smoothly, because the relationship is bent. Nothing is going to happen. So it's one thing I tend to share with producers, processors. You need to build relationships with the community that you find yourself. Identify the key stakeholders in your business, even your consumers, even those who buy your product or your produce. There is nothing wrong in educating them once in a while. Tell your story, how you've come to be, leverage on the kind of social media that suits your lifestyle. So if IG is where you're comfortable, if it's Facebook, if it's LinkedIn, just be out there. And one of the things I also find out is that you could also endeavor to eventually have your own website. When you have your website, your market is wider. Many more people can reach you. So you are not just identifying yourself to align with somebody or some people in particular. It becomes many more people, because at the end of the day, all you want to do is be out there. Let your production count for something. Yes, we're aiming for zero hunger, but it's not just going to be by producing the food itself. It's going to be by all those strategies that we should endeavor to put in place to ensure that work goes on smoothly, production, processing. And we shouldn't forget that the stakeholders in agriculture and agribusiness are very many. So we're talking of logistics, we're talking of media, we're talking of trainers, we're talking of input providers. It's a very wide gamut, and we should all really see ourselves collaborating and working much more together to achieve that zero hunger that we are planning for. There are also growers who grow at home. These have become a very formidable group. I know that I have trained nothing less than about 400 to 500 people on how to grow at home. In fact, when I started farming and I realized that I had learned some things, I was so excited. I felt the need to share with people. And so I held my very first training in 2015. And then I brought in some other technical people. And that's another thing we all need to strive to do. You can't be an all-rounder. It's not possible. You're going to have your areas of strength. You're going to have your areas of weakness. So if you are strong in something and you are weak in another area, nothing stops you from bringing in people who have that expertise to help you so that you can all achieve more by collaborating. So training women at home is something that I've thoroughly enjoyed doing up until now. I think I'm on about 4 or 5 WhatsApp groups. In fact, there should be almost 10 where women are excitedly growing things at home and they're sharing and all of that. And then we do training for them. So it is all part of it. And it is a healthy relationship. And I know that these are some of the things we can all do to ensure that there is zero hunger. And I'm not leaving out the youths. It makes me very happy when I see what many of our youths are beginning to achieve. I remembered reading your newsletter. In fact, not your newsletter. I thought, is this just one magazine or could it go for 2 editions? Because it is really loaded. I mean, I had, it was like almost dedicating a whole day to read all of it. But I love the fact that you actually showcase the women who are in agriculture, the youths, and even those who are doing their backyard farming. You're doing an awesome job with that newsletter, and I believe you're going to go very far with it if you keep up the standard, So that is as much as I can say for now. Maybe people have a few questions to ask me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Please, if you have questions, let's just drop it on the comment box so that she takes them one after the other.
Yes, Olamide Akintaro says patience is key. Yes, it is. Whether it's agriculture or agribusiness, it takes time, and one needs that patience to succeed in this our business. Thank you for that. So it rained heavily today. Please, can you ship some of the rain to my side in Ogun State? That's Port Harcourt. Wow, you're enjoying. It stopped raining in Ogun State. I think it stopped raining about almost 4 weeks ago, and we're all, just crossing our fingers and hoping that there will be one last or two last rains. So congratulations on that. So you've all made my work very easy. It looks like I don't have questions. So can you grow corn all year round? Yes. The same place. It depends on how you have fed the area, because I know you are also growing naturally and you're not using chemical inputs or synthetic. I would say for us, we've done it over time because we use mostly compost. And what compost does is it's a slow release. So you find out that it's even by the time you're doing the second round that you now have much more richer soil. But what we do is that we leave a break in between. We actually leave a break in between. So we could leave the place for about 4 weeks and go elsewhere, and then maybe come back. So I don't know if that will work for you, but it has worked for us. One of the key things I would ask is, how can you be dynamic in an agribusiness, as an agribusiness person in the face of looking economic crisis? Well, one thing is certain: people are still eating. People are still eating. People are still, they're still doing things with food. So it's just a matter of knowing where exactly to play, knowing what area you want to play in. But people are still eating. And there's some things that people cannot do without. There's some vegetables that people cannot do without. So that's why I based my discussion today on the different strategies that we need. I mean, I'm not coming to tell people how to grow anything. I'm just telling them how to ensure that what they are growing gets to the table for those of us who would like to eat, Then I have somebody asking, do you really think organic agriculture can meet the yield of the conventional agriculture? Well, I don't know where this question is coming from, whether it's coming from point of practice or point of what people say. If it is point of practice, one thing I know is that you need to weigh. When we talk of yield, we're probably talking of money. Okay, if I can do 100 kg, I'm going to make more money than the person who probably has 60 kg. For someone like me, I am talking from the point of safety. We are now standing on the threshold of boosting one's immunity. There are people who they had to quickly retrace their from what they were eating. Have quite a number of people who are struggling with their health, either being diabetes, cancer, and all of that. And what gives me joy is seeing people saying, oh my goodness, I've changed my diet. I'm now more comfortable. My body system is okay. The doctor says I'm better and all of that. I'm not a scientist, but I just know that I'm providing safe and healthy food. I have people who I send produce to as far as Osun State, and I'm thinking, why do you have to buy from me all the way in Lagos? Who says, madam, please, I know what I'm doing. But the question of whether organic can feed the world, I'll tell you, when you hear some stories, you need to know who is asking or who is making the assertion so that you know where it's coming from. So if it is somebody who sells chemicals who is making that assertion, I obviously know that the intention is to be able to sell what they're selling. So I am a practicing organic farmer, for me, I also know that I have premium. I'll tell you an example. There is a lady right now who's come from outside the country who is looking for ginger. She is ready to pay 30% more for organic over conventional. So I do not advocate other than for organic, but people should make their choices for wherever they find that comfort zone, then they can stick to it. But in fact, my post today on IG was on our tomatoes. I mean, these tomatoes have been fruiting for the last about 2.5 months, and I'm going, wow. And I'm telling you, the kind of fruit, this is something that we have not used anything special other than organic matter. In fact, somebody came to the farm and said, this is one of the sweetest tomatoes I've ever eaten in my life. Then people will tell me, oh, when I eat your sweet corn, I savor the taste the whole day. But when I eat another, in fact, in 5 minutes, I've forgotten that I've eaten. So people will just need to make up their mind and take their choices. But for me, there are no other sides to the coin. So I have another question. What is the advantage women in Agric have despite numerous responsibilities they need to carry out with family and possibly business? I wish I was in a position to answer that adequately because I no longer have little children. But I know that even when my children were young and I was working in a paid employment, I wasn't working for myself. Everything is organization. You organize your time, you build your duties around the family. So I always tell people, if you have a family, then they're very key in the scheme of things. So just plan your time so well that you allot enough attention to every aspect of your life. If I go to the farm now and I go away for 2 weeks, nobody is going to worry about me. And I'm not going to worry much about anybody other than my husband, who probably just is as busy as I am. But with little children, then it makes sense to be more organized such that everything is built around everybody. You are organizing yourself in a way that, it's kind of balanced, so to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma. I'm really grateful. Thank you for making out time despite your busy schedule. Really appreciate you, ma.
So, any more questions? Yeah, I've answered
I think
that.
that's all, ma.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma. Really appreciate you.
So, thank you for bringing me to Lagos. Yes, simply Lil. Well, you do work, you can, and learn to delegate. Yes, that's one of the things. You learn to delegate. You can't be superwoman and be, good at everything. You just have to find where the ones that are important and prioritize everything. So thank you for having me. And
Thank you very much.
it's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma. Thank you very much for making our time to be with us. We're having our next session now with Mr. Sampson. So let me
Okay, we can continue as long as you can hear me. I think that's fine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm with you, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
You're welcome, sir. The last magazine edition we talked about creating a niche in agribusiness, and our second edition we're talking about enhancing agricultural productivity. At Agric we believe that zero hunger is everyone's business. You should not believe achieving zero hunger should not be left to certain set of people. We believe everybody have a role to play. And since we talked about creating a niche in our first edition, we think that enhancing agricultural productivity to actually see that we achieve zero hunger is what we are looking at in the second edition of the magazine. So in a few minutes, I want you to help us elaborate on the theme, enhancing agricultural productivity. And to take question, maybe after your session, 10 or 15 minutes at the answer.
All
Thank you, sir.
right. Thank you. I'll probably be very brief. I mean, your player has said most of everything. I think she actually gave a pretty good summary. So when we say agricultural productivity, um, it's most of the time when we say agricultural productivity, people tend to focus more on just the farmer, and we forget that productivity is not just the duty of the farmer alone. It's a complete value chain. So before the farmer, there are the input supplies that need to be used. Talking about, for example, the quality of seed. The kind of seed goes a large way to determine how productive a farmer would be. There is understanding your environment. For example, you want to plant in a new area. Do you even understand what the soil says? I'm really glad that Mommy Okwe took time to talk about organic and all of that. I'm glad because destroy food. I don't want to say they are doing it deliberately, but maybe out of ignorance. Take for instance, the past few weeks have been around different parts of the country, and there is this indiscriminate use of fertilizers just because you feel if it is not enough, let me throw in more. Unfortunately, fertilizers, in the simplest form, I like to describe fertilizers like drugs. You don't just take drugs because they are available. There is a need to first understand what is missing before you go and take drugs. Unfortunately for fertilizer, maybe because of the guys that sells the fertilizer, it just seems as though once you are using this, once you are growing this, take fertilizer, apply at this stage and at this stage, which most of the time does more harm than good. So you realize the input plays a whole big role. It's important that people understand that the opposite of fertilizer not being enough is not pouring in so much, because when you put in so much, you go from deficiency to toxicity. And on either side of the divide, it has issues on the plant. Then there is also the fact that in Nigeria, most thing we call the law of minimum. And the law states that what is of the most effect or of the most impact when it comes to production is not about what you need the most, but about what you need the least. So you say that in simpler terms, as a person, we were taught that the primary food is carbohydrates, protein, fat, and oil. But you would agree with me that some of the most delirious diseases that a person can suffer does not come from carbohydrates, um, carbohydrates, protein, or fat and oil issues, but rather from things like the vitamins. Small as copper is, as small as iron is, as small as the minute form that you need these guys in the body, they are the what's the word now? They are the backbone of the red blood cell, that's the hemoglobin, or the chlorophyll in plants. As small as the amount of magnesium we need is, it is the backbone for our kinases to work. Kinases are found in, they are like the cofactor in enzymes that allows most of your pyruvate kinase, hexokinase, and other enzymes that are needed for proper metabolism to work in the body. So you realize that when it comes to input supply, when it comes to things like fertilizers or agrochemicals, there is an indiscriminate use. Another example is the use of things like herbicides and all of that. This is super abused. Now, this is usually the issue that farmers do not get to understand most of the time, which is when you overuse or you abuse a particular chemical this season, you are going to pay the price next season. So that is on input supply. Still on increasing productivity, there is now the proper land preparation. There is the proper preparation for what you want to grow. Unfortunately, this is totally dynamic. I am opportune to see some tractor drivers trying to prepare land, and they do not understand the first thing about land preparation. They just know it's about moving tractor, and they destroy the land in the name of preparing the land, which is super wrong, super wrong. So in the land preparation, there is also a way and a pattern. There is a way and a pattern for weed management. I always like to give this example. If as a person, I don't know if you can still hear me. If as a person today, okay, if as a person today I have a cut on my hand and I am moving around the road, you are going to see flies following me. The reason the flies are following me is because of the cut in my hand, which means my body is producing something that is attractive to them. I don't know if that makes sense. For me to have eczema growing on my face, it means I have dead, decaying cells that I did not wash out quickly. The same way, when you have plants having pests, having diseases, having disease outbreaks, is a pointer to the fact that the substrate, the medium, whether soil or soilless that you are using to grow, is not healthy. So if it is not healthy, it is able to allow for the growth of pathogens. So you realize the fact that when people have pests or diseases affecting their plants, the first thing they do is to go and attack the plant with more chemicals. No, you are not helping. You are adding more chemicals to something that is already immune, which is wrong. So with that, you realize, you think, oh, I am helping, but the reality is you are even making it worse. Not just for that season, but for the following season. Then you now come to the growing proper itself. Most farmers today are just the guys that put something in the ground and do abracadabra and wait for it to grow. They do not understand the science of these things. I mean, I like to tell people that, see, in biology, the simplest thing we were taught is living things can either be plants or animals. It is key we always remember as farmers that plants are living things. If plants are living things, they can respond to stimulus. They can respond. And if they can respond, it means if you give them rubbish, they will give you back rubbish. I really love the fact that I spoke after Mommy Okwe, because earlier today I made a post that how many farmers actually grow for health and not for profit. Yes, you want to make profit, but health should be first, should be priority. You are the first line of defense for people against diseases. You are the first line of defense. I made a post a while back that whatever is destroyed on the farm in the form of planting cannot be corrected in the kitchen. So productivity is not just about, oh, I am growing more crop. Question is, how healthy is what you are growing? Are you growing more crop or you are poisoning more people? It's very, very important. Then, as you move out from the farm, there is now what we call post-harvest handling. How do you handle them? How have you planned to ensure that what you are producing has a need to meet? Because today, I mean, I think one of the most naive statements I hear people say is, I want to go into farming, and you ask them, do you have a market? And you hear things like, people will eat, so I'm sure I will sell. No, you won't sell. This is the reality. I always say this as a guy, that there is a salon I pass before the salon I cut my hair. As a lady, there is a salon you pass before the one you make your hair. There is a church or a mosque you pass before you get to the place you worship. Which means you do not go to every place you want, patronize them. Which means everybody would not necessarily buy from you. Do you know who you want to grow for? Do you understand the market? Because one of the reasons why we have people producing and it is going to waste is we don't even understand the market we are going for. we don't understand what they need. We don't understand when they need it or how they need it. So we just grow like I don't know. I don't pardon the word. We grow like illiterate, like our forefathers did in the past, which is wrong. All of this reduces productivity. Then there is now also, I don't want to go too far into the whole value addition and all. I want to stay around that productivity. There is then the use of technology. Now, when I say technology, I'm not even talking about things like tractors and the rest. Those are too big. As a smallholder farmer, you may not have money for big tractor and the rest, but you can subscribe to just a little thing with food talk. Like for example, weather prediction. Know what weather says tomorrow. I am tired of hearing farmers say things like, "Oh, I am praying for rain to come." When the science has already told you there will be no rain tomorrow, what are you praying for? Are you Elijah? But if you understand weather patterns, if you understand the pathogen history of the place you are growing, if you understand the substrate where you are growing, it goes a long way. For example, somebody I love so much in the industry, tomato juice, Madam Mira, she is getting right now about between 30 to 70 tons per hectare of tomatoes. Meanwhile, farmers outside are still getting 5 tons per hectare. I am not using nuts because I'm into soilless greenhouse tomatoes. So when I get 80 tons, it may not look special. But that is somebody doing soil that has taken time to understand first where she is. I mean, you want to go and buy seed and you are buying hybrid seed. You did not even ask yourself, what was bred into this hybrid seed? Is it what I need for where I want to go? Hybrid seed most of the time are bred to fight against diseases naturally. But question, the disease that they are telling you that hybrid seed will fight against, is it the same disease that is common where you are? Or are you just buying it because you like the face of the person selling it? That also would increase your productivity. Do you understand the water tolerance of the seed you think you are buying? Do you understand how much sun it needs? How much rain it needs? Let me give you an example. I've heard people say things like, "Oh, I did irrigation based planting, and at the end of the day, I did not get the productivity I was promised." Let me use a perfect example, cucumber. If you plant cucumber, the law for cucumber planting says that cucumber plants should get about 1 to 1.6 liters of water per day. It is not enough to say I gave irrigation water. Question, was it up to 1.6 liters for the day? If not, you are giving the plant water, but it is still thirsty. Or did you give the plant 3 liters of water? If you did, you are drowning the plant. It's suffocating. So there is no way it will give you what is expected. Or, "Oh, I went to buy a tomatoes that is called Roma, and they promised me a single or beef stick. A single beef stick will give me 500 grams, and you are complaining you are getting 200 grams per fruit." Question, did you follow the rules that they gave? It is a level of ignorance to buy hybrid seed without understanding the rules and regulations from the person that makes the hybrid seed. So for us to increase productivity, there is a precision involved. There is a knowledge involved. The knowledge must precede the act. It is not enough to dig like you used to and plant. You must understand the knowledge. You must understand the science. For God's sake, it is called agricultural science. We should not stop in the path of culture being tradition. My father did it. Get to the end of the statement. It's a science. You cannot neglect the science and expect the result. It does not work. So for us to get to the productivity that we are looking for, there is a need to go back to the science. I'm glad Mami Okwe, I know I've said it so many times. She said something about shelf life. Why is it that most vegetables or plants today do not have long shelf life? Because you have put in so much chemicals that once you cut them from their source, what we call harvesting, those chemicals start to disintegrate very fast, reducing the shelf life of that crop. So let me pause here so that in case there are questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, if you have any questions for him, you can start dropping it so that I start taking them one after the other.
I'm guessing there are no questions. I'm a cute farmer. Good evening, ma. I'm a lebil. Sorry, that's why I call him. I'm a lebil. So the shelf life is how long will a plant stay after harvest? So when you harvest a plant, how long can you keep it in your house before it starts getting spoiled? That is the shelf life of a plant. So for example, tomatoes typically has about 3 weeks shelf life. Unfortunately, when I say shelf life, I'm not saying putting it inside fridge. From the name shelf, put it on the shelf in a place that is airy, not under the sun. How long can it last? How long can it remain fresh without getting spoiled? That is the shelf life.
Thank you for that, sir.
Uh,
Please, do you have another question?
Madam Glorious, thank you, ma.
Okay, sir. Since you don't have questions, any further questions, sir? You have gone through the magazines and we have our audience here online with you. Can you just share like a 5 minutes review of what they should expect from the magazine and what you have been able to pick out from the magazine?
Yes, yes, like I said during my talk or during my rant, I don't know if I'll call that talk, during my rant, I said there is a need for knowledge to precede actions. See, if you know me as a person, you will know that I am somebody that loves to read. Hi, Fisayo, thank you so much. I am somebody that loves to read. See, we must become a society, especially as farmers, we must become people who understand the value of reading. The importance of that magazine is it gives you other people's experiences, pathway, journey for you to learn from so that you don't repeat the mistakes. So pick up the magazine, try and learn. Especially if you are thinking, okay, I want to invest in agriculture. Having money does not guarantee success in agriculture. Go and read magazines like that. Hear other people's story. Understand their process. Understand how they got to where they are. And if I may add, Mr. Agricome, please for
Okay,
future
sir.
editions, if it is possible, let's have where people share their failures so
Okay,
that
sir.
it's not as though we only celebrate successes. People who have failed and are trying to come out of it or have come out from it, because it's important people come into agriculture understanding that this is a business. It's not plug and play. It's not because people eat, everybody succeeds. That you can put in all your money, do everything right, and everything decides to still go wrong at times. So yes, I would implore everybody, pick up a copy of the magazine, read it. Now, one of the things that I try to do is when I read magazines like that and I hear people's story, I go beyond the magazine and try to read about the person to understand the person's journey, because the magazine just gives you an highlight of key points. But I take time to dig more to read about the person, to understand the person's psyche and the person's journey and processes. So yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, it's and I like the fact that it is maybe it's because of COVID-19. I'm not sure why, but I like the fact that it is digital, which means we can pick it up anytime and read. I like the fact. I hope we get more editions and they remain digital. At least people like us that are lazy book carriers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. We are really grateful. We're happy to have you in our midst to see that you support the works of youth. He was also around for our first edition and the second edition too. He was also around. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of everybody at Agric Income, we really appreciate you, sir. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you
sir.
so much.
Thank you very much for making our time, and for us to pick a copy of the magazine. We can just the link is on the last post on the Instagram on our Instagram page. We have the link to the payment link also at the bio of the of our Instagram page. Thank you for making our time to join us once again. Please, if you have any question, be writing up in the next 2-3 minutes. You can just drop them. Let's take them. And if you don't have any, we'll call it a day. Once again, we appreciate us for making our time to be here with us. Thank you.